Hey guys, welcome back to the Road to Here. And this episode's guest is quite possibly one of my favorite musicians going. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass, man. That most recent record is in heavy rotation around my house
Oh,
and
thank you, man.
in the trash truck and everything. So, uh, this guy here is Mr. Brooks of York. Brooks, introduce yourself.
Right on. I'm Brooks of York. I make indie dream pop as described by others. I have no idea how to describe my music. So the first time I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's the kind of music I make. But
Yeah.
I like to say I when I was growing up, I would hear like I would listen to rock records and there would be like one soft, pretty song on every record. And that was the one that I liked the most. And that's kind of what I do in this project.
Dude, it's dope, man. You described it as what Phil Collins and Death Cab, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's dead on, man. And the Phil Collins thing is what hooked me, right? Because I got a soft spot, man. Like my whole life, my mom was a huge Phil Collins fan, dude. So I was like constantly surrounded by his music. So it's and I hear it, not too much, but I hear it occasionally.
Yeah, it comes out especially on my song "Big to the Sky," and like
Yeah,
I didn't hear it at first. Like my mother-in-law was like, "Oh, you sound a lot like Phil Collins." I'm like, I don't hear it. Like I wasn't mad. I was just like,
right.
but you're wrong.
Yeah.
And then and then I came out with that song, and she was like, "Right here, you really sound like Phil Collins. Like you need to go." I'm like, "All right." And then I
Shut
went,
up.
yeah, no, and then I listened back, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Now I can't unhear it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at it. And then the Death Cab thing, like I just listened to far too much Death Cab. It's been like 20 years of me listening
Oh,
to Death
dude.
Cab, so it's hard not to.
Dude, they're doing a tour now with the Postal Service. It's like Ben Gibbons Fest.
Yeah,
And man, I want to go to the Nashville date so bad. I want to go so bad, man.
I've heard it's a really good show.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been trying to go to more shows, man. I took my oldest two are 18 and 17, and I took them to see Flogging Molly.
Oh my god.
And that was one of my favorite bands. Like I don't know how old you are, man, but I'm 41. And
I'm a year behind you. Yeah, it's
okay.
like yeah,
So they
really
were
good
yeah, that
band.
was right in my wheelhouse, dude. Like O2, Swagger and Drunken Lullabies, like those records were a big deal for me and my buddies. Like and and my daughter's like totally into everything Irish, so she was all over it. And they're incredible. That's the first time I've ever seen them. And they're what gotta be, I mean, Dave's gotta be like in his 60s.
Yeah, at least
And
like
he's
I was
still
seeing
like
those.
maniac.
Yeah, I was seeing those guys in high school. I got dragged to a bunch of punk rock shows in high school, and I was like, "This is all right." And then like there were some ska shows. I was like, "This is fun."
Yeah.
Uh,
I
but
never been to a ska show, man. I always talked a bunch of shit about ska, to be honest with you. I was
yeah. Well,
I've
because
been
there was one dance you could do the entire time, and
right,
like
man. If you're
everybody
not
could do it.
skanking, you're not living, you know what I mean?
Right. And I was like, this is fun. Like nobody's really moshing. Like I wouldn't get hurt. I'm like, that's cool. Let's go do it.
I thought about jumping in the pit right at Flogging Molly because it was pretty spirited, you know what I mean?
Oh
And I was
man.
like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show these kids, that the pops has still got it, right? And I was like, dude, you're fucking 41. Do not do that.
Mm-mm.
I'd be
Mm-mm.
down for at least 2 weeks. There's no way I
I,
could have made it down.
I never went in the pit, even as a youngster. I was
Oh,
like,
I was all
nah.
about it, dude. My favorite was I went to a Slayer show and went to the pit and Slayer. That shit was
Mm-mm.
insane, man.
Mm-mm. Absolutely not.
That's
Refuse.
the loudest band I've ever heard.
I believe it.
Well, I take that back. They're second loudest, only to Dinosaur Jr. I
Oh, that must have
saw
been a cool show.
Jay Massis in the Fog, which was one of his side projects in a club in Hoboken in like '02. And dude, he had like 3 full stacks in like a 600 person club. It was
Like why? Why?
yeah, right, dude. It was insane. Like, have you ever seen him play? Dude,
No.
so he's got 3. I'm sorry, guys. We're gonna go musician talk here. He has 3 full stacks, like 2 super leads and then a high watt, right? Full, like 412s. And then his monitor, and he positions them around him in like a semicircle, right? So he's standing in the middle, and they're in a semicircle around him. And then his monitor that's hitting him in the face is like a 70 silver face twin, which is I mean, I don't know how dude is not like constantly vibrating.
Why?
It's
Or deaf. Like
I don't I mean, yeah, there's no way he has any high frequency hearing. No way.
no. He's just got to be feeling it the entire time.
He's got to be. And they're doing a stadium tour this year with Weezer, which is nuts. They're
Good for
it's the
good
Weezer,
for
the
them.
Pixies, and Dinosaur Jr., I think.
That's a hell of a show.
They're playing the Blue album like in full all the
Wow.
way through. Yeah. Anyway, so you're Brooks of York. You're a musician, and
Yep. Yep.
we've gushed about music long enough, I think. So give
Fair.
the people what they want, Brooks. Give them all 10 of them. Give give them a rundown of your spiritual upbringing, like where you came from, what that looked like for you.
Sure. So I was born and raised in North Carolina, and
Huh.
then spent the second half of my, I guess, childhood, teenage years in New York. So like very, very different
Yeah.
upbringings. But
Like the
as a
city?
no,
Okay. All right. All
upstate
right,
New York.
gotcha.
Yeah, no. I like trees too much.
Yeah, I hear you.
Uh, but yeah, Southern Baptist was how it started.
Oh,
Yeah, like
that's not
I
what
don't
I
know if
expected. I don't know
no,
what I
no.
expected, but that wasn't it.
Yeah, Southern Baptist, and then parents got divorced. One got remarried, and then that turned into hanging out in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
So, and that was my spiritual upbringing, which those are two very different sects of
Oh, dude.
Christianity.
We have a very similar storyline. Not those were my two as a
Oh,
child.
really?
Yeah, because my mom's side of the family, my grandmother she's passed away. She was German. She came over with a GI in the 50s, and she was Orthodox Roman Catholic. And then on my dad's side, my granny was foot washing Southern Baptist. So those were the
Oh,
two.
wow.
Those were the two that I had as well. So that's interesting. You're the only other person I've ever met that had the worlds collide like that, because those are two totally different things.
Yeah, yeah. I could say the same for you because everybody else who hears that is just like, you did what? I was
Right.
like, well, not. I was like, not by choice.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. This is there, man. Like
yeah.
I got, when I was 16, I got stuck taking granny to church because I could, they're like, oh, you're driving, you're taking grandma to church. I was like, it terrified me. So were you in? Like, were you in? Like, were you all in with it, or how'd you
No,
feel about it?
No, I mean, like I was always kind of iffy with the church. I mean, as a young child, like you do the Sunday school thing and you hang out with all the children. We read books about God and Jesus, and that was like, it was juvenile. So like we're coloring and stuff.
Right.
We're painting. When the switch went to Catholicism, like obviously I was a bit older. I was like, I don't know, 13 or so, and that was a different kind of church service, right? Because now
Right.
we're doing mass,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now we're standing up and we're kneeling and we're
Yeah, it's a
standing up and we're
workout,
sitting
bro.
down. Yeah, and I'm just like, what is this? And they're like, oh, you got to get up now. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, no, you have to sing. And then there's a bunch of other shit that I've forgotten, and you got to memorize a bunch of different things. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. We're
Yeah.
like, yeah, at least like at the Baptist church, like you could just pick up like a hymn book, right? And like you could
Yeah.
just mouth the words and it would be fine. But like it was like very strict.
And they're in English.
Yeah, it was weird. So it was probably during my time. It was definitely during my time, hanging out with the Catholics, where I was like, I don't want to be here.
Right.
I like definitively don't want to be here. I started arguing with the parents. I was just like, y'all can go to church. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we have to go. And like this is amidst like them trying to do like Bible studies like at home, and I'm like, wait, we do that once a week already. Why are we doing more of it? Like I already don't like this, and now I'm gonna not like it more. And they were like, well, you have to like be one with God. And I was like, I don't know, where is he?
Right.
And they didn't take kindly to that. I got grounded a lot as a kid. I was a little sassy, or a lot. But there was one particular time where we didn't go to our normal church for whatever reason. I went to one a few towns away, and it was the winter. I'm wearing like this big, like cable knit, sweater. And it's great for outside. It's horrible for inside a
Oh
packed
yeah.
church. And so I'm already like not digging the standing up thing. And I just like got super lightheaded, and I told my parent, I was like, I gotta go stand outside. They're like, you can't leave right now. And I was like, I mean, I either pass out
Yeah.
or I'm just gonna go hang out in the steps. And then I got in trouble for that too. I went outside,
Yeah.
and like that for me was like that was kind of the turning point where it's like I definitely don't want to be here anymore. Like it just felt weird.
It is weird. Catholicism is weird. Now I stand by my statement, and I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before, but the pomp and circumstance now as an adult is beautiful. like the ceremonial aspect of it, just from a pure aesthetic standpoint, it's right up my alley, dude. Because I was like kind of a goth kid, and all into the weird, spooky. I enjoyed the aesthetic of the Catholic Church, but
Right on.
it I never went very far personally. So you're a teenager when things start to change, right? When you realize you're not in, or how old were you?
Yeah, well, there was so that was one defining moment. So I was probably like trying to think where we were and how old I was. Yeah, I was at least 13, might have been 14.
Right.
But then like the year prior, I was going to this Christian youth group like after school
Mm.
once or twice a week. And really the reason why I went, like one of my parents were like, this is a good idea. And I was like, every one of your this is a good idea is like isn't really like that. It's usually like it's just good for me to get away from you. Um and I really went because like this girl that I had a crush on, like
Oh yeah,
she
always.
went.
There we go. There it is.
Nah, but I mean like
Always what it is.
and it sounds kind of like, it sounds like, oh, you were just trying to chase an after, like, but like she was an awesome person. Like I genuinely liked hanging out with her, and she had made
Right.
it known for a while. She's like, I'm not allowed to have boyfriends. I'm not. I'm like, yo, that's fine. Like I'm genuinely just trying to hang out with you, because like I didn't get along with a lot of people in like middle
Right.
school and high school, right? So it's like you find somebody that you get along with, like, yo, let's hang out, and then you happen to be interested in them in a romantic way. It's like the pull is even more so.
Right.
And so I started going to this Christian youth group, and like it was okay when they started to bring like rap into the
Oh
Christian
no.
youth group. Yeah. I was like,
No.
guys, what are we doing? Can we just bring your acoustic guitar back out?
Yeah.
Let's kumbaya it up, right? Like change the words to like some of the popular songs of the time, and like and that's fine. But
Ugh.
yeah, it's at one point there was like, hey, we're doing like a ski trip, and I was like, that sounds fun. Let's go do that.
All right.
And I was like, Christine, are you gonna go? She's like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go. I was like, right on, cool. That's like 3 days where I got to deal with the God thing, but like we can hang out. And the time comes,
Sorry,
and
man. I mean,
no, it is kind of funny. Um, and the time comes, and it's like the day before, and I called her up, and she's like, oh yeah, I can't go, and I forget why, and I was just like, oh no, and I was like, I don't want to do it because I didn't fucking know anybody else.
right.
I was really just going to hang out with her, so I go because I couldn't get out of it, and I was a kid, so like I didn't know how to tell my parents, like I didn't want to do it, and they'd already spent the money.
Right.
And like I can't get ski boots my size. So then I just end up hanging out with like the counselors the entire time. And this dude is hard pressing me for 3 days.
Oh
Are
no.
you ready to accept Jesus Christ into your heart? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like he's just like, this is really important, and I'm just like, and he's like peer pressuring me into it every day. And like, I managed to get around. I'm hungry. Oh, I gotta pee. Like, hey, I don't know. Look over there. There's a pigeon. And like, and eventually he just like, he got me like on the bus on the way back. And here I am sitting like, it's like one seat and it's a two-seater on this side, two seats on that side. And there's people in front of me and behind me all peering up over looking at me, and this dude is holding my hand on a Bible, and
Oh.
he's talking about whatever it is he's talking about, and I'm just sitting here, and I just felt like myself kind of float away and watch this whole shit show happen, and I'm like, is it this just feels wrong. And like when you're a teenager, you don't have all the words for everything,
Right.
but like looking back on it now, I'm like, this is peer pressure. Like, why were
Of course it is.
you so, this guy must have been like in his 20s. I'm like, why are you so hard pressed to get me to accept Jesus? Like, and like, does this count? Because this feels like I'm accepting him, like, under duress.
Right.
I'm just like, what are we doing? But
See, I don't get it, dude. Like like I said, I've said ad nauseum. Like I didn't have that upbringing. I always felt like I was missing something, honestly, because we didn't go to church. Like I saw people in school that I thought were like really into it, and they had this whole community, and I was like, damn, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Like getting answers and hanging out. Okay, like because I've always been like this. I've always like wanted philosophical bullshit, and you know overthinking everything, and it's just character flaw.
no, I think I will say, I mean, you and I don't know each other very well, but I wouldn't call it a character flaw. Like, I think that's cool. Like, being philosophical about shit and like being curious about shit is like that's cool. holding somebody's hand over a Bible when they're trying to fucking pull it back.
Right. Yeah.
I would call
Well,
that a character flaw.
but see, I don't get and it's an evangelical thing, I think. And
Oh yeah.
I don't understand how you could possibly expect a child to comprehend that shit. You know what I mean? Because
Nope.
I am a grown ass man and I am just now at a point where I feel like I can kind of articulate my beliefs
Sure.
and why I think that way. You know what I mean? And that's with a whole lot of therapy and medication and all the good stuff. And it boggles my mind that they expect these 8 and 10-year-old kids. Like I know my son is 8, my youngest, and I can't, dude. He don't know shit about shit. You know what I mean? It's like Fortnite, and yeah, I mean that's all he's worried about, dude. He wants to play outside with his friends, and he wants to come in and play Fortnite with me and his
Right
buddy
on.
Corey. That is my dude's life. Like that is what he does, and he started playing flag football, so that has moved into
All right.
a firm number 3. But wow, I mean, I would never even dream of like dropping that kind of shit on him. You know what I mean? Like,
I never understood it either, man. I mean, like it's a big reason. Like, my wife and I, like when we first met, like we were like pseudo religious, would go to
right.
church on like the holidays and stuff like that. But as we got further along in our lives, we're just like, I don't want to do this. And then when we finally had kids, and she was like, well, you know, how, how do you want to bring them up? And I was like, I don't know, like as best as we fucking can. She's like, no, I mean, like from a religious standpoint. I'm like, I'm not a Christian. I was like, I
Yeah.
was, and I'm securely not. I was like, so, I told her, but before the first kid got here, I was like, I'm kind of the mindset of just let's bring them up, teach them not to be shitheads.
Right.
And if they take to a religion as they discover it, like on their own or like through studies, cool, do your thing. Like I
Right.
like you want to go read that book or this book or go to that temple or mosque or whatever, like you go do your thing.
Hmm.
But like I looking back on like my childhood and just being like, oh, like people talk about indoctrination, which is kind of like a separate conversation, but it's like, well, you create life, you bring them here, and then you go, this is the
No,
world. And
this
you're
is
just
that's not
like,
a separate conversation, bro. That's this conversation, and
all
it
right.
is absolutely indoctrination.
Yeah.
And,
And
and,
like,
and I mean, there's no other word for it.
and that's how I felt. And, I remember like, talking to my parents and talking to my in-laws, they were like, well, like, how are they going to have like any kind of guidance? I was like, we're their fucking guidance.
Right.
I'm like, hey, well, how are they gonna know like not to do anything bad? I'm like, how are they gonna know not to kill somebody?
Right.
Because it is bad. Like yes, having like a religious upbringing means to some degree you are going to have morals shoved down your throat.
Hmm.
But like you don't, I don't necessarily think you need, the threat of like fire and brimstone to know that
Right.
like I probably shouldn't go over there and kick that random puppy.
Clubbing baby seals is bad.
Yeah, it's
Right.
just like, why did you just punch that kid? It's just like, I don't know, it just seemed like a great idea. It's like, no, like no, almost no one's like that. Unless they've been heavily traumatized.
So do you think that I'm curious, and we're going off the script here, but or
All
not
right.
script, but off the questionnaire, I guess. Do you think that there's something in us that's inherently moral? Because I had a lot of the same questions about morality when it came to religion. And because it is a fair question to somebody who's in religion. And going back to the indoctrination thing, I don't necessarily think that it's always ill intended. You know what I mean? I think that
No.
these people are doing what they genuinely think is the right thing by their
Oh,
children, and that's admirable, like on any
I
level.
subscribe to that. Yeah.
But I didn't have that upbringing, and I'm not out stealing, and you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I just kinda knew, and I don't know if it's societal or what. What do you think? Do you think it's just in us to know right from wrong, or
I mean, I think it's a bit of both, right? Like a lot of a person's upbringing is going to be environmental, right? And
yeah.
and if you have like not necessarily like a traditional household, but if you have someone who is your parent or elder or whatever it is, right? It's like you're the kid and they're the person that's responsible for you,
Hmm.
you're probably going to model yourself after them to some way, shape, or form. So if that person's not out there doing quote unquote bad things, right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes you do have to steal to fucking put food on the table. But, like they're not necessarily out there doing bad things, then like you as a child are going to go, cool, here's what I can and can't do based upon the person that I look up to the most, or people, depending upon what the family is like. And I think that's more important than any sort of like religious upbringing, because when you are the role model, for better or for worse, like you are setting the moral standards. And I think the expectation, the kind of hope is that, as the parent or parental figure, you're inherently going to be passing on those traits to that kid that you're responsible for. Um, I don't remember what the original question was, because
No, the morality, like where does it come from? And
oh
to what you're saying, I totally agree. I feel it's weird because as a parent now, you have to be careful because I don't want to skew my children one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like I try
yeah.
to be an example, but I also understand that they are their own person, and I think that's hard for a lot of parents, and including mine. You know what I mean? Like my dad, yeah, the fact that I'm not and for my cold dead hand NRA Republican, I think it took him a long time to be okay with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I mean, we come from a long, prestigious line of white trash, dude. On that side, like it's full blown, bro. And but I feel like now we have such a good relationship because of our differences. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm
oh, good for
hoping.
you.
That's what I'm hoping for my kid. Like as different as my father and I are, we still can talk just about anything, and we argue all the time, like especially about politics and stuff. And a lot of times I just say shit to get him going because it's fun, whether or not I believe it or not. You know what I mean? And that's just the troll in me, I guess. But
I mean, you gotta give them grief. But no, I mean, I getting back to the morals question. Like, I think there's also something like, like within us. I think everyone does have a bit of a moral compass, and it's like, I don't know, it just feels bad. Like, there's that saying, like, once you know better, do better. And
that's
then I
good.
had a friend of mine who was like, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Like, you don't necessarily need to like explain yourself. And he's I don't he's got a lot of like great sayings from just like, hey man, what do you think about this? He's like, well, how do you feel about it? I'm like, I don't feel great about it. He's like, probably don't do it then. And he's like, that's as far as you have to
So
go.
easy.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is, and it was like 7-8 years ago when he started dropping that on me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go with that from now on, because it's like, that's usually right.
That's solid advice, man. So where are you now, spiritually speaking?
Spiritually speaking, I mean, I guess, atheist.
Okay.
I do not believe in a God. I do not think there is a higher power. It would be awesome if there was, but
Right.
when I look around the world, and I see the atrocities that happen, I'm like, okay, so if there is a God, why isn't that God doing anything? Why would that God let all this horrible shit happen? Which to me, it just goes back around to there is no God. I do think that like pagan beliefs are pretty cool, and especially when we look at like where Christmas came from,
Hmm.
and and like winter solstice, and all that's just kind of been whitewashed for the most part to get us to convert to Christianity. And and I like some of the pagan beliefs and celebrations, so like that stuff's really cool. But in terms of like, do I pray or anything? No, I'm not passing along any of that shit to my kids.
Right.
When they start asking about stuff, I'm more than happy to open up, the Google encyclopedia and go, let's look it up, let's learn together.
Right.
But I'm not necessarily going to sit there and be like, there is no God. I'm like, you gonna get to this shit on your own,
Hmm.
because like coming from that that indoctrination upbringing of like, this is the truth, and then having to like unravel all that shit, I'm like, I'd rather just kind of give you a blank canvas, and then you paint it how it makes the most sense to you, and then maybe you'll be kind of the 0 point, and if you have kids, you can show them a better way. So I kind of see as like where we are is like just trying to like clean the slate, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair, man. It's funny. Like I I think about this shit a lot, and I read books constantly and listen to podcasts, and the religious stuff is a big part of me right now, and I don't know where the fuck it came from, but it just came back like full force. You know what I mean? Like once I started getting treatment for PTSD, and I started kind of regained two things. I regained my love for music and the desire to make music, and
Right on.
this and this came back like way stronger than it ever was. So it's hard for me because I don't know how to talk to my kids, and that's why I asked this question on this show. I ask it of pretty much everyone, and the way I have these questions laid out is honestly it's selfish for me because these are questions that I have that I don't fucking know how to answer. So it's cool to get like the hive mind. You know what I mean? And and the bottom line with my kids is I don't know what to say because I don't know like what the fuck I believe. You know what I mean? Like it changes every day.
Sure.
So it's I know I'm not Christian. I know I'm not evangelical. I know that for certain. I know those kind of things, but yeah, I try to do, and that you put it very well with the clean slate thing. That is kind of what, and I've noticed my kids will kind of follow suit with some of their friends that have, I think, religious trauma in their upbringing and stuff. Like one kid in particular gets really pissed off and tries to talk shit about church, and you know what I mean? Like, there is no God, yeah, like all angry atheist. I'm like, hold up, man, time out. Like, I'm gonna throw the flag on that one. I was like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about because you were never exposed to that. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me because I don't want them. You want to teach them to find their own thing, but also it's equally important as me for me to teach them not to shit on somebody else's
Yeah.
beliefs. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I think I think that's a very, very like valid point to make. Um, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's it's like when I try to explain to my kids, like, hey, like not everybody has the same thing.
mhm.
Like 2, 3 years ago, I'm gonna try to make this analogy, not sound like a rich white guy. But like we saved up for 2 years and we got an above ground pool. I also like sold a bunch of whiskey that I had. Um, and we got this pool. And I was like, hey guys, like I didn't have a pool growing up. Like I barely got to go to like, a public pool growing up because there was none by us. So it was like a
Right.
separate trip. I was like, so you need to understand that like not everybody has this because like they're of that age where they're like, oh, cool. Like I have this video game, so you should have it too. But what if they don't? I have
Mhm.
this toy, so you should have it too. What does yours look like? So I didn't want them going over to their friend's house and being like, oh, where's your pool? And then it's like, you're an asshole. Um, so like, and that's kind of like the basis I use for like, hey, all right, you know how like we have a pool, like most other people don't, and like again, like it's super small and it was a fuck ton of money. But like it made sense
They
for our
are a fuck
family.
ton of money, dude.
Yeah, dude. But like everybody's like sensory seeking in our family. It's like varying levels of ADHD and autism. So like it really helps us all just like calm the fuck down. So it was an
Yeah.
investment. Um, but like it's but it kind of going back to what you were saying, where it's like, don't shit on other religions, don't shit on other people's, culture. It's like, yeah, it's like, hey man, like we're gonna figure it out. Like I may not have all the answers for you, but just because this person is Christian, Catholic, Muslim, whatever, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Like I have my beliefs, you can have yours. As long as we're not shoving them down each other's throat, it's
Mhm.
fine.
Yep. I just had this. I just had to have this conversation with my 8-year-old, and I'll spare you the whole story, just family drama and whatnot. But we have a rather
It's always
spirited,
fun.
we have a rather spirited family member that is evangelical, and
Mhm.
you know, it's hard, man, because I tried to explain to him how I view things, and how the fuck do you tell? Back to what I said before. Yeah, how the fuck do I tell an 8-year-old this shit? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like she's had to like be nice. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. You know what I'm saying?
That's what all you can do.
And
You know,
dude, that's parenting in a nutshell. I have cracked the fucking code. I could write a book, and it's basically just you're trying to make your kids not be dickheads. That's it.
yeah,
That is
I will.
parenting.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
agree to
hot
that.
take. That is my
I,
hot take.
for the record, I could not handle having an evangelical relative. Like I have like very, very religious ones, and I think at
Mhm.
this point they know just to kind of like chill, because we've had those conversations. I am the person in my family that no one argues with because everyone has had that last argument with me, and they're like, "All right, I can't do this anymore."
That fucking guy.
I
Yeah,
just,
this fucking guy.
I'm like,
It's man, it's hard being in, the Bible Belt and not believing the Bible. It's
yeah,
and that's one of the things I've really made an effort with this whole spiritual quest I've been on. And I've really made an effort to kind of look into as much as I can. I'm no scholar, but just the history of that book. And I'm like, man, come on. Like it's just a collection of stories from different authors, from different editors, from different time periods. And the damn thing wasn't even canonized until almost 400 years, 397. And they call it the Common Era, is what they call it now, or AD. That's when the New Testament was canonized. For 400 years prior to that, it was like, yeah, this is pretty much it, but we're not sure. You know what I mean? And there are books that they carved out in that
yep,
canonization. There are books that, yeah, and there's so much stuff, man. And I mean, come on, dude. It wasn't even written down for 80 something years because they thought he was coming right back. You know what I mean? Like that was the thought. And once I started learning this stuff, and I learned that the synoptic gospels were not actually written by the apostles. They were written by people that heard what they said and decided to write it down. So I mean, how could you? Everybody played telephone
yep.
when you were a kid, and I mean, I don't know, man. That part, like being a
No,
literalist, just boggles my mind.
no, and I'm with you there, man. Like when I try to have this conversation with like hardcore Christians, they're like, "Well, like it's the gospel." I'm like, "But who wrote it?" They're like, "Well, it was written by God." I was like, "Okay, so God put pen to paper." And they were like, "Well, no." And I was like,
Yeah,
"This is the gap right here. This is the gap. We like you're on this side of the train tracks, and I'm on this side, and the
right.
cars are going in different directions." Like,
It's yeah. The first guy I interviewed on this show was my buddy Eric, and he's an atheist, and he said it the best way I've ever heard it put. He was like, "One of us is making an outlandish claim, and it's not me." I'm like, damn, like yeah, like I get it, but I'm a firm believer in Morgan Lee, Caucasian Space Jesus guy, right?
right
He
on.
got me reading Joseph Campbell, and dude, like that has like I man the stuff that Campbell does with the comparative mythology, and you start to connect the dots, and it's just all it's all the same thing. Like, and it's not
Okay.
exactly the same thing, but the premise is the same. You know what I'm saying? And
I
it's all taken from different places, and it's basically just recycled stories. Like
Yep.
and if you look at the Bible and the Quran and these scriptures, holy scriptures or whatever, as what I believe the legends that and myths that they were intended to be, and you get the moral of the story, it makes way more sense than trying to take it literally.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree with that. I mean, it goes back to how like they rolled a lot of pagan beliefs into what are now Christian holidays. It's like what the fuck is an Easter bunny?
Well, see that.
Like
Well,
what are we doing over here?
that's
It's like we
capitalism. That was just trying to sell candy, bro.
well,
Like that's all that
well,
was.
yeah, but I mean, like, but like, well, I mean, like, and when you look at like the modernization of what Santa Claus is, because he used to look more like the Krampus, but
Mhm.
for me, it's just like, yeah, it's like we can keep going back further and further in time, and we can look at myths and legends, and they just kind of like rolled into each other. What's the new version? What's the new version? What's the new version? And that's how like when I started to peel back the layers of Christianity and like years of like you know being a child of the church, I was like, oh,
Ah,
I was like really, man? Like, do you know how many like Sunday morning cartoons I missed? I was like, I
right.
just could have like, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, Greek mythology is way cooler.
Well, okay. Here is my opinion, and I have no basis for this. All right, I have no proof, or this is just an opinion. You look back to the time period, and if you're trying to grow a religion, right? If you believe something and you're trying to sell it, essentially, right? You're selling something to the people. You're going to package it in a way that they understand,
Oh yeah,
and I think there's a lot of the Old Testament, a lot of the wrathful, angry Old Testament God, the stories, the legends that are very similar to a lot of the Greek mythology, as far as just being jealous and spiteful, and you know what I mean, like demanding devotion and asking to do all this crazy shit to prove your devotion, and that I don't know. That's a connection that I have made. I don't know
No, I'll buy into that.
if there's any basis for that, but I feel like a lot of that was probably trying to sell it to the Greeks. I don't know. Just a
Yeah.
thought.
I mean, I think if there are similarities between, the place or religion, you're in and the one that you're trying to get to or somebody's trying to bring you to, yeah, the easiest way is just to be like, oh, well, they also did this thing.
Right? Yeah.
You're like,
Ours
oh,
too.
okay.
Ours
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our God
This
did this
is
too, man.
this is just
Right.
it's 2.0 over here. That's it.
So yeah. So does your, and I know the answer to this question now, does your lack of spirituality help you navigating tough times, like traumatic situations? Do you feel like it gives you an advantage, the fact that you're not assigning esoteric you know
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, because like, prior to like, leaving or losing religion, it would always be, a question of why is this happening? Like,
Mhm.
well, can you help me praying this, that, and the other? I just need this. I will do this if you do this for me. And now it's just like, no, like this bad thing happened because that person's an asshole. I'm no longer going to associate with them. And for the most part, the bad things are going to stop eventually. For me, it makes me feel like, not necessarily more in control, but at least more aware of what things I can and cannot change. Because I'm of the mindset now that like praying or going to church or reading any level of scripture isn't going to help me get out of the situation that, I'm in, or, or feel differently. But action probably will.
That is a solid point. That is a solid fucking point. So, all right, man, we've kind of covered the basics. I mean, where you came from, where you're at now. Uh, are you comfortable getting weird? Because this is the shit that I really enjoy. Because I
Yes.
ride I ride around in a garbage truck all day thinking about this shit. Like, this is welcome to my life, welcome to my brain, and
Let's
and
do it.
it's so cool that the internet has given me the opportunity to, uh, you know, unload these things on upon people.
Let's do it.
So, in terms of truth, and this is intentionally kind of vague, do you believe that truth is objective or subjective?
Well, objectivity is based upon verifiable facts,
Mhm.
right? So for me, I think all or at least most truths, for me, it's got to be objective. If somebody's going to sit here and tell me that 2 + 2 is 4, it's like, all right, cool. There's two apples. There's two apples. I could
And
see
now I have
four
four
apples.
apples. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like that's and that's like oversimplifying it,
for sure.
but I think for me like that's how I currently approach stuff. Now going back to your question earlier about like morals and moral compass, it's like, well, if it feels bad, it probably is bad, and I think that might be where like subjectivity comes into play. But at the same time, it's like, well, if I kick the puppy's going to be hurt, and then it's going to cry. I think we can all agree that's bad. That is a bad outcome. So I think the vast majority would verify that is bad. But that's my short answer for that.
It's hard for me, man, because I want to subscribe to the idea that reality is perception, or perception is reality, however you want to phrase it. And what's inherently bad to me, like, I agree with you, kicking a puppy is a shit thing to do, and I would not kick puppies. But that's a tagline right there, buddy.
Just
That's
put
going
it
on
on a
a
shirt.
t-shirt. I would
I
not
would
kick
not say.
puppies. Will. Yeah. Sharing
Oh,
Maps podcast. We do not kick puppies.
this should
But
be on a sticker.
yeah, fucking I gotta write that down. No, but I mean, you know, there's probably people that are into kicking puppies. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? And we
definitely.
would call it psychopathy, most likely we would say that it's inherently an indication of some sort of disconnect from what's commonly accepted as moral and right. But on the flip side of that, man, like, it's the collective agreement of the group that makes something moral. You know what I mean? Like so that is where it gets weird for me.
No, I could definitely see that. I mean, and like I followed up with like, okay, well, how do we prove that it's bad? And listen, I think you just end up going down like a long hallway of doors you just keep opening
Mhm.
that don't necessarily lead anywhere.
Story of
But
my life.
yeah, but like it's like all right, well, if I kick this puppy, like what's the positive outcome? The puppy's hurt, and then if anybody else sees it, they think I'm an asshole. So even if I derive pleasure from kicking the puppy, everybody around me is going to be like, "You shouldn't do that," and the puppy's going to be like, "Why did you do that?" Assuming the puppy can talk in
Yeah.
this in
Yeah.
this
Damn,
analogy.
dude. Like what? Yeah.
I was just taking a nap.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see where you're going. I mean, like you can kind of argue that kind of into a circle. So maybe the real answer is it's a bit of both. But I think for me it would be mostly objective,
I
and then
got
maybe
you.
some subjective when it comes to puppies.
Okay. Yeah. Puppies. Puppies are the line. You draw the
Yeah,
line in the sand with puppies. I
that's
got you.
it. Can't do it.
Yeah. No kittens. Not a cat guy.
I mean, I wouldn't be kicking them either. Like I wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily be hanging out with them. They'd be like,
Okay.
"What's up, cat?" And then keep
Yeah.
walking.
I got you. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, nobody's perfect. So, all right. Here's a quick one here. How do you
Okay.
feel about the concept of non-duality?
So I actually had to look up non-duality,
That's what I like.
and I was like,
That's what I
"What?" I
like.
was like, "What the fuck is this?" So, you know, um, I read it as the concept of like either we are all of like one giant entity, or like the concept of us and God being one and the same, like one of
Hmm.
one like part of the greater whole. Which I think is a cool concept. And if
Hmm.
I was religious, I'd probably, subscribe to that. But I'm already tethered enough to people that I don't fucking like. So I would say I don't want to be more tethered to them. I would like to just fucking keep them as far away as possible. We all
Oh,
you referenced some family shit earlier. And it's like, yeah,
I
yeah.
do.
Like I feel like that shit's like it's not even on the back burner. It's always just like right here. It's just like you're right here. You're here, man. Oh, do you guys want to come to my house for no? Never. I don't want to fucking come into your house. Like I'm
No, I will
good.
not.
I'm
I
good.
will not be at your home ever. Like if I can
So
help it.
yeah, so I think like not being a religious person, yeah, I don't I don't believe in that concept. I think it's a cool concept,
Right.
but yeah, I'm not there.
I got it. I get it, man. And that's something that's a new kind of development for me. And that the whole concept kind of blew my mind. So that's why I asked that question. Like I was like, holy shit. Like I never considered that. And one of the things that I really like about it, and I don't necessarily consider myself a religious person, I don't guess, but it's the idea that we're all capable of amazing things and we're also all capable of terrible things. And I
Yeah,
feel like that's the case. You know what I mean? Like and you see people that do both in their lifetime. I feel like it's hermetics is a kind of a woo-woo philosophy. I don't know if you're familiar with it's
no,
supposedly ancient wisdom, right? But I think the general consensus is that it's from the late 1800s. And anyway, it's the concept of polarity, and it's you see it a lot in everything. Really, it's that we're on a spectrum. Like there's a good,
for
bad,
sure.
and then we slide back and forth, right? We do, and it can be by the moment. I've said some shithead things to my wife, and as soon as it's one of those things where it comes out of your mouth, you're like, "Fuck!" Like I cannot believe that actually
Uh,
left.
I've done
Yeah,
that. I've
yeah.
done
And
that.
you say
Yeah.
you're like, Come back," and then, but it's that's what attracted me to it, man, because I feel like it's the only thing to me that makes sense. Because while I get atheism, the concept of absolute nothingness is just as fucking bonkers to me as the concept of you know a dualistic God. That
So
that
No, and the only reason I want to interrupt you is like because
Yeah.
I do agree, right? And I liken it to the first time that I realized that space was infinite, right? And like never ending. Because when you think about how we live, right? Like I'm currently in a room which
Hmm.
has finite space, in a house that has finite space, in a city that has finite space, right? In a planet, right? You keep going out now and out, but like
Yeah.
everything's inside a box. And so when somebody was trying to explain to me, when I was a kid, the idea of space just being infinite, I'm like, yeah, but like, where's the wall, and then who's on the outside of that wall, and then I don't even remember, like, the cat with the necklace in Men in Black, where it's like, it's a whole
Right.
galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh shit, mind
That,
blown.
that fucking movie has come up more times in this damn podcast. Like, I don't that dude. I think like low key that movie changed a generation, bro. Because like,
Oh, they threw some nice little, like, mind fuck Easter eggs in there.
yeah,
Every
yeah,
night, 9, 10, 12-year-old kid was like, "What? I didn't think about that." But like when you're talking about, like atheism, the idea of there being nothing, being absolute bonkers, like I liken it to that, right? So I can't really sit here and say with, like absolutely, like there is nothing. Just currently
there it
with
is.
with what I have in front of me, I don't I don't see anything else. And
It's yet
so
to be have yet to be convinced,
right, right.
basically.
So it's like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, "You're wrong and you're wrong," it's like, no,
Mhm.
like, hey, like, with, coming from an objective standpoint, right? Harking back to your other questions, which is why I liked all these questions, because like they're definitely interconnected. But like with what I have in front of me, this is what I have to go off of, right? It's
Right.
like, do you know how to get to the grocery store? Yeah, I do. Which way are you gonna go? I'm gonna go down the street, take a left, and then take a right. I'm gonna be there. Oh, did you know there's also another way? No, because I haven't seen it yet.
Mm,
And like, and that's
mm,
that's how I feel when it comes to, like, divine creation. Where did it all start? How did it happen? Like, science gets us, I think, to a reasonable extent. But yeah, I mean, I liken that comment about atheism, absolute nothingness, to, like, looking at,
mhm.
the cat with the galaxy necklace. It's like, what's on
Yeah.
the other side? But anyway.
Well, science does get us, and it. I used to kind of look at science almost like a god, I guess. You know what I mean? And now
That makes sense.
I feel like the two are intertwined because when it comes down to it, neither one explain everything.
No.
You know, you science gives you the nuts and bolts of what is physiologically happening. But a lot of times the why is still it's still the why. Like and I think that's the whole point. And a lot of what I read, one of the like the thing one of the books that I read, there was a comment that really stood out to me, and it said, "We're constantly trying to f the ineffable." You know what I mean? Like there's no point in talking about it, and I think that's what drew me to a lot of the Eastern philosophy because they don't necessarily talk about it, or if they do, it's like from what I know about Hinduism, it's all just whatever's right for you, man. Like you know what I mean? It's all, and in Buddhism, there's a saying that it's all just fingers pointing towards the moon. I mean, like
Huh.
we don't know. And it's okay that we don't know because we're not supposed to know. The point is to figure out us. You know what I mean? And that really resonated with me
I
on
dig
the on
that.
the on the Eastern shit. So it's non-duality is something that's new to me, but if I were to say that I subscribe to philosophy regarding regarding creation or regarding existence, it would probably be that because that is the only one that makes sense to me. I don't buy the whole sky wizard moving us around like chess pieces thing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Bec-
man, Sky
because
Wizard. I
like
haven't heard that one.
because like if that's the case, like fuck you. You know what I mean? Like based on
Yes.
on things that have
Yes.
happened in my life, things that are happening to people every day all over the world. Fuck you. You know what I'm saying? And that is not. And I think that is what causes a lot of this trauma, dude. These people I've been talking to, man. Like you are told every day to love and Heretical Dan really put that shit into perspective for me because he was talking about he came from a charismatic Christian background, like Kenneth Copeland. You know, they speak in tongues. It's like an offshoot of the Pentecostal church.
Jesus.
Yeah, they talked about him a lot. And but he, you're taught you have to love this guy, this person with all your heart, this person that's there that you can't see, that you can't talk to. And then he does all this terrible shit, or if at worst does it all. At best, you know what I mean. At best, just sits on his hands and watches it fucking happen. And if you're an
Yep.
all omnipresent being, then get your ass down here and help. Yeah,
Agreed.
and I think that's what's so fucking traumatic to people because I I don't know, man. I think it's that's why the dualism is so dangerous because I feel like it's all us, regardless. Like all this shit's in our head. We made all this shit up. We created all the religion, all the fucking
Yeah.
science. Like it's all just our observation. You know what I mean? Like things are just thinging, and we assign whatever meaning we can find to them. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I look at religion as like we don't know how we got from 0 to 60, and we're like, we know what? Here's some fantastical shit that kind of sounds
Yeah,
cool. It
we.
lays like a moral bed for us.
Mhm.
And then I look at science, and science is like, oh, we started to figure some of this stuff out. Like, we don't have the whole yellow brick road, but we've got all these pieces, and some of them are directly connected, and some of them are like, I'm
Yeah.
missing some steps to get there. But I feel like science is kind of like the you said it perfectly. I think nuts and bolts. Like we're still like building that out.
Mhm. And that's why I enjoy science so much, man. But it always bugs me when the two there. I just don't feel like the two are diametrically opposed naturally. I feel like they can go together. Now, whether or
Yeah.
not you're inclined to one or the other is a totally different story. But the two are not opposites. You can't use one to disprove the other. Is basically what I'm saying. Because when it comes down to it, they're both our own creation,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Let's see, where were we? Damn, you got me on a fucking tangent, dude. Let me get down on my soapbox here.
You're good. You're good.
That question does it, man. I don't know what it is. So all right, what is consciousness to you?
It's a cool question. It's also vague as fuck.
Hmm.
Um,
Intentionally
so
so.
yeah. So I mean, like I think consciousness to me is me being aware of who I am and where I am and the things that surround me. Um, it's kind of hard to describe because it's like we've always been
Hmm.
right. Like I didn't know a time before me, and according to my current set of beliefs, I will not know a time after me. But I do know that I am here and I am here now, and I'm talking with you. And after I get off this, I'm probably gonna put another kid or two back to bed. Um,
Ah,
yeah,
Michael.
and get like another shitty night's worth of sleep, and then do it all over again tomorrow. Um,
It
so
makes you
I,
feel any better? My kids are adults and I still don't ever fucking sleep, so it never
oh
ends.
man, I don't like that's not what I want to hear.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
Um,
Truth is
I'll take
truth.
some fall. Yeah, I'll take some false hope every now and again.
No,
Um,
sir. Not here. That's not on brand.
right on. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's my short and sweet for consciousness, just being aware that I'm here.
So I'm so glad that you're an atheist because it makes this next part of the question so much more fun. Without like without God or without an explanation in an esoteric sense, where does it come from? Like, why do we have it, and most other animals don't? I mean, I know there's like elephants and other primates that seem to exhibit some of the same cognitive ability, but why is it us? Like, why are we the why are we the only ones sitting around talking to internet strangers in our respective
Well,
man places about God?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that like animals don't have consciousness. I think that just because we are more technological advanced, or we express ourselves in more technological ways, doesn't necessarily mean that like 8 monkeys hanging out in a tree aren't having a great conversation together because we don't necessarily understand how they communicate. So
Mm,
for me, it has less to do with how advanced they are. I mean, think about when the European colonizers came over to the Americas, and they deemed the indigenous here as being savages because they had bows and arrows and they had guns. They didn't have a need for
right.
anything else than what they had. They knew how to live off the land, and they were fucking fine until my ancestors came over here and fucked it all up.
You're
So
too right.
I like, yeah, and so when we talk about consciousness, like I don't know who does and who does not have it. I assume that anybody else that can communicate with me has it. Where does it come from? I make the assumption that like all animals have it to some degree. We just can't necessarily communicate with them to verify.
Man, that makes my hamburger a lot less attractive.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I mean, you got to eat at the end of the day. Um, we can't all be vegan.
Right. I cannot. I could maybe do vegetarian, dude, but I gotta have cheese, bro. Cheese is my. I don't understand. That's my jam. I'm like Monterey Jack over here from fucking
It.
Rescue Rangers.
I don't know if I could get rid of like chicken and fish. Like I've cut out all red meat. Just because like it just does not agree with me, and I feel better. But not
We
because
have two for the
I
most
feel
part, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
not because I feel bad for a cow. I probably should, but
Right.
um, you know.
Uh, all right, man. So have you ever given a lot of thought to the simulation theory?
So I've touched upon that here and there, but I never really like dived into it to be like, okay, what is this? So prior to coming in here, I was like, all right, let me just do my homework. Um, so I mean, I first like every other time I've had a conversation about it, it's always just harken back to the Matrix, which isn't an accurate definitely or isn't an accurate example of what this is, although it does have some similarities. But I mean, we could very well be. It would certainly answer your question about where does consciousness come from if we are all living in a simulation. And like that, like talk about like rabbit holing hard. I feel like that simulation theory does that. I was like, this is fucking depressing. Like if this is really like where we are and what we're living in, what if I am just a Sims character, in somebody's video game who's just the future version of, or not even future version, but like the more advanced version of whatever we are. So prior to today, not really.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome.
that's gonna be great. Whenever I have my next round of dreams, when I get like more than like 3 hours of sleep, that'll probably be what I dream about. Um, but I think it does kind of it evokes a little bit of like chaos, frustration, and despair. Like, oh God, if this is all it is, then why am I even recording this music?
Right.
Why am I even going to work? Like, what happens if I
Because
stop going to work?
well, then, I mean,
What happens to the simulation then? But I mean, considering what we're seeing, I assume I'd be living a shitty simulation with no house and no job. But
maybe, or you don't know. Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like there are a lot of signs pointing towards that. And once you step outside of the 101 matrix thought process of it, it's all okay. So in most major religions, uh, all of them, I guess, you have a true nature, right? You have a way that you're supposed to be, or that you naturally are, or the way that you should be, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And you're here and you're one way. And your whole goal of being here is to figure out how to get back to your true nature. Now, the
hmm,
path of that is varies widely depending on the faith and yada, yada, yada. But in that respect, if you have a true nature elsewhere and here is just here and you're going to go back there, it's all a fucking simulation. Just maybe not digital, but it's this
sure.
like this reality isn't the point. This reality doesn't matter. And I find like thinking that and thinking that way, which by the way, like I said in the last episode, all this shit should be prefaced with oh, because I don't.
No, I mean,
But
yeah, for me,
thinking that makes me feel the opposite of despair and hopelessness. And it gives me like kind of a sense of calm, man. And it allows me to kind of zero in on the moment. Like, cause I feel like everything is less pressing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what happens next or if anything. I mean, it could just be lights out. That's fucking boring. But I mean, maybe that's what happens. But I found that simulation theory in that respect really helped me. It kind of helps me chill out, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like, man, it's just not, it's not as finite. You know what I mean? Or if it is, it's whatever. Like, it's just a fucking, it's a game. And we're just here doing our best.
yeah, I guess I didn't think about it in terms of like what happens when the simulation is up or this life is up, and where do you cycle back to? That hadn't actually crossed my mind. probably because in my current state, I'm just like, yeah, it is lights out. At least, that's the
Yeah.
information that I have. Um, but I
But you
mean,
make the music because it brings you and other people happiness. And I
I
think
mean, like,
you know that on a level. Like
oh yeah,
I've never spoken to you prior to this, and I like genuinely enjoy the shit that you make. And I think that is the whole point is us fucking interacting with each other. So I don't know.
no,
Continue.
no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no. I'm just listening. I mean, first off, like, thank you. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
compliment in there, so thank you. But I mean, I selfishly make the music for myself because like it evens me out.
Hmm.
I do think it's wild that like other people enjoy it. And like there's definitely like a course along the way. You're like, all right, let me polish this thing up as much as I can. So there is that element of like I hope other people like this, but you said something in there about like getting back to one's true self, and for me it had like echoes of mirroring, like masking when out in public, right? Like like what, like social masking, like
Hmm.
when I'm at work, I'm not going to be the real me because
Hmm.
that's just going to get me fired. I've started to like be more and more myself at work, which is just
Yeah.
it's a that is
Hey,
a that's a very fun game to play.
come on
Uh,
over to the blue collar side, buddy. You could do whatever. Nobody gives a fuck as long as you
I
show up, punch a clock. You
I
can.
I I did that for a short time. I almost got
Okay.
my ass kicked.
Yeah.
Um,
There's that.
yeah, I was like, why do you keep saying fuck you? I'm like, it's not to you, man. I'm saying because we used to play cards before the
Right.
shift started, and I'm like, oh, they're like, "Oh, you're totally fucking me today." Like, and then, like they took it like literally, and I was like, no, dude, like, clearly, I have yet to find a way to fit in. Um, but but I do liken it to that because like if we're just trying to get back to our true self, like when I'm at work, I'm just trying to get the fuck out of there. I'm just trying to get done.
Mhm.
And I could bitch about work forever, but I'll keep it very short. Like what drives me the most insane about where I work is like the lack of efficiency. I'm like, guys, we could be done earlier, like or we could just be done better and be doing more and then make the company more profitable, which in turn would allow me to ask for a raise that I might actually get. But
Maybe.
like, yeah,
That's
maybe,
that's
right?
that's assuming that capitalists are gonna be okay with coming off money, but
Yeah,
that's
but it's
another
like
conversation.
if they're making more money, it's like, hey, if we're making more money, you could give me more money so that I can in turn be, more compelled to make you more money. It's a never ending cycle. But like that's what annoys me at work. And so I've got to going like, all right, deep breaths, put the mask on, play the fucking game, and then let's just get out of this and go get a sandwich. Um, and like so when you said that about getting back to your true self, like there's a parallel there that I'm having a hard time like honing in on, but I don't know, it struck a chord, I guess is what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
Well, it's because it's the old saying, "There's nothing new under the sun," man. It's a series of fucking cycles, and
Sure.
that, I mean, everything is cyclical. Like, and I think that's evidence in nature, in science. Like everything has a cycle for the most part. I mean, the seasons, the fucking our lives, like whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's a really cool book called The Fourth Turning that breaks down like the generational cycles, and that shit's crazy. Like I recommend that if you're into this shit at all. Like, and it's not like esoteric or woo woo or nothing. It's anthropologists that were looking back through history for something else and noticed, hey, like there was the equivalent of a boomer generation, like
Son of a bitch.
600 years ago, you know what I mean, that had the similar attitudes towards you know what I mean, like our attitudes towards the
Oh
generations that follows
man.
are not new, and
What's
it
it
all just comes around again.
what's a book called?
It's called The Fourth Turning.
The Fourth Turning. Yeah, that's
And
something I want to read.
yeah, and like so like and it goes into like civilizations, like different aspects of civil, you know what I mean, like this happened, then this followed this, like a period of disease and war follows it, I mean, it's just it'll get you, and
Yeah,
you'll end up on the fucking anarchy train with me probably. But
I just placed my order.
atta boy.
Yeah,
Good luck.
my wife, it's gonna get sent to my wife, but she's gonna be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, "Oh no, I was doing this podcast." And she's like, "Oh," because when I told her what we were gonna talk about tonight, she was like, because I just started going down the questions, and she was like, "Wait, no, no, no. Is this like a very religious bro? What kind of podcast?" And then I was like, "No, no, no. Here are the other questions." She's like, "Okay, all right." And I was like, "You know the guy who did Caucasian Space Jesus?" She's like, "Oh yeah, that was rad." I was like, "Yeah, he was on the show." She's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "All right, cool. Go have fun."
That's man, that was so much fun, dude. That guy's wild, man. I got to go back and fix the fucking audio. This is totally off the rails. But I went like a couple people told me recently that there's like a click, and I listened to it and I was like, "There's a fucking click." I don't know how I didn't hear that. They're not like a click track, but
Happens.
there's like a clipping, and I got to go back. I got to fix it.
Yeah,
But
do what you
anyway,
can.
yeah. Okay. So this is the last question, and again, a selfish question because regardless, yeah, I don't necessarily have a concrete set of beliefs, but this shit is important to me, and I really like the way talking about it makes me feel. So in that respect, I guess maybe I am religious. I don't know. But why do you feel like spirituality and or religion are important for a lot of people and some people could care less?
Sure. Well, I think for the people who are religious, right, it gives them, kind of a moral code of conduct, right? Like,
Hmm.
do this for these reasons, don't do this, otherwise, suffer eternal damnation. But I think it also helps them to feel more comfortable in a world that they don't quite understand, right? It's like, oh,
Hmm.
it's again going back to Christianity, it's God's will. It's a test. Everything's a test, but like, have faith. And I think it kind of creates this sense of comfort and calm where chaos comes in. And so if you have that to turn to, you don't ever feel like lost or alone. And I think that's why most people have religion. I look at my late grandmother who was always like, pretty well into Christianity. And as she got older, she got more and more into it to the degree where like she's just quoting verses left and right, which is kind of cool when like you just like can rattle them off.
Right.
Um, you know, but she was like just start telling stories. She's a great storyteller. But my grandfather, her husband died, like 25 years before her.
Oh man.
And yeah, dude, like like if my wife died, I'd be fucking dead a couple years later. Less so from a broken heart, just because I would just do something dumb. Um,
Man,
but
that's the fucking truth.
yeah, but like I when I saw her turn more and more to it, I was just like, because we started like I started to get older and be like more against religion, and my mom had to pull me aside and go, "Hey, she's old, right? She's your grandmother. She's always been really nice to you, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we are checking the boxes of shutting the fuck up. I got it."
Yeah, I got him.
And
Roger that,
she's
mom.
she was like,
Yeah.
just let her talk, please, because my mom's like of a very similar mindset in terms of religion with me, and it was less like her coming to aid her mom and just her being like older and wiser, going, "You got to let this one go." I'm like, "Oh,
Right.
solid, yeah, you're right." And
Yeah.
and for me that was kind of like the driving the point home that you made earlier of like, hey, like don't shit on other people's religion, because in those instances my grandmother was trying to not necessarily shit on my opposition to religion, but she thought she was trying to help me and pull me further into it. And instead of just arguing with this very sweet, very old lady who like had never done anything in my entire life to make me mad,
Right.
I just should have shut the fuck up. And it was a lesson well learned.
I try to look at it, when people connect, when people really get what they need out of religion, when it genuinely makes them a better person, and all the dogma and all the, evangelical bullshit aside, when people connect and get there wherever there is inside of their belief system, I think there is nothing more, I don't know, beautiful. You know what I mean? When they're not being pushy, they're not being dickheads. That
Oh,
stuff.
sure.
It's hard to look
Yeah.
past that, but with older people, especially like, and of course, you get into the older you get, then fucking the end's on the way. So you better, as they say down here, you gotta get right or get left. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I haven't actually heard that before.
Oh
That's
yeah,
good.
man, that's a good one. Turn or burn. Those two, like,
Oh my god.
yeah, there's all kind. There's some good ones.
Yeah,
So I'm
Jesus.
going. Well, man, I really appreciate you being here, Brooks. This has been a blast, dude.
Oh, likewise, man. I appreciate having me on.
So take a few minutes, plug yourself. Well, I mean, you know, this is a PG show, so but plug your material.
Oh, my music.
Yeah,
Oh, right on. Sorry, I was like, what are we plugging?
yeah.
I was like, I was like,
It's not
everything's
that kind
plugged
of
in.
show, buddy.
No, no, it's just like, um, no. So I make music. You can find me anywhere you listen to music. Brooks of York, all one word. My name being of a place, Brooks of York. I make music that you could chill to. If you like sad music and you want to be sadder, I got you.
Good rainy day music. I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you've eclipsed Radiohead from my rainy day music right now.
Wow, and
Yeah,
that's like super sad, disturbing stuff too.
yeah.
Jesus.
And I'm just glad you're not a whiny Brit.
I mean, I could be. I could work on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe next time. You gotta
Yeah,
have goals. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for listening. Check us out. We are streaming everywhere that things stream, and we are all over the YouTube now. So there will be this video will be up soonish. Um, I don't know why I'm saying that because you're in the future and you'll just see it when it's up. So anyway, thanks for listening. We're on YouTube. Subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Right on.